So Maxine, this is as I mentioned, now the third chapter in this horror trilogy that director Ty West has quickly shot. It may perhaps be the quickest horror trilogy that we've gotten, at least in
Ever.
recent memory. It's kind of crazy because he
Nuts.
shot the first film X, and then he went back immediately and shot Pearl, the subsequent follow-up film, which is actually a prequel. He shot that back to back. Pretty much just held Mia Goth captive for who knows how many months and made her film these movies back to back. They took a little time in between to go film MaXXXine because it was going to switch locations, definitely going to take place in a different era and a different time period. So they took a couple of years in between the second and the third movie, but this is now serving as a direct follow-up to X. And so the first movie, X, standalone story. Pearl is a prequel story that sort of goes back in time many, many decades. And now MaXXXine is now apparently the concluding chapter in this trilogy of films. And this is something we got a chance to go check out. So with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it to you. What do you think about Ty West's new movie, MaXXXine?
I was so excited, man. X and Pearl are so good. But Maxine, man, like you said, Ty West has shot this so fast. And what's so interesting is even though as fast as he's been shooting these, X I didn't really feel it. Pearl, I didn't really feel it. Maxine, I think I feel it. I think I feel how fast Ty West has turned this one out. We are following the character of Maxine that we see after X, and I want to say first and foremost, no problems that I have with this movie have to do with Mia Goth. She is still tremendous. She is still great. What an amazing actress. She's killing it here. I also like the amount of time we get with Moses Sumney. I think he's good. I like seeing him more often. Halsey does a good job in this movie. Giancarlo Esposito was different in this movie, something in a way I haven't seen him before. He's fine. But the film itself, Maxine, the character itself in this film, I feel like did not get enough almost to do. And part of that is because I feel like Ty West has a big undertaking in this movie. I think he's trying to do so much. This movie is set in 1985. Hollywood is in a very interesting place at this time. And you can tell he's trying to, one, of course, recreate the feel of what 1985 feels like, in particular 1985 horror, what that feels like. And there's so many references to 1980s horror. And I don't know. I feel like he's just trying to do so much here to kind of fit this thing and to make it that 1985 timepiece that we kind of lose the story with Maxine and what we're trying to tell. There's so many moments. I think I get almost lost. Like, okay, but what are we doing here? Like, I actually asked that a couple times. Like, okay, but what are we doing here, and why are we here? And it was not necessarily frustrating, but it was like, okay, I guess let's continue to move on. But man, I really wish Maxine had a bigger arc here because I think if you're rounding out a trilogy, you got to give us something satisfying. And in particular, by the third act of this film, I didn't feel like it was earned at all. I didn't mind everything happening on screen. I was like, this is nuts. I don't know what's going down. Or like I like what's going down, but I don't feel like we earned it. I don't feel like we should be here. And a lot of it felt like because he felt like we had to do so much in the movie in order to get here. I feel like the story and Maxine as a character, her story in particular, was convoluted in all the noisiness and all the mess. And so while I did still like the watch, and I still had a fun time, I was definitely disappointed by Maxine. I thought it would. I thought we would get. I don't know, maybe just a better conclusion from Ty West. I understand conclusions are hard, but man, this was after those first two. I really wanted him to hammer it home, and that's not what we got here. But man, overall, I still say successful trilogy. I don't hate this movie. It's just not the banger that I was hoping it was going to be. But yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it there. I still love Mia Goth, and I need Ty West to keep cranking out more movies. I can't wait to see what he does after this trilogy, man. He's very talented.
Yeah, Maxine is definitely a step down from X and Pearl, which is unfortunate because this had a pretty golden opportunity to be one of the finest horror trilogies that we've seen in the past 35, 40 years. But I think, unfortunately, due to a lot of different circumstances, it just doesn't reach the height. First and foremost, which is just kind of a baffling thing to me, I don't understand this, but Mia Goth as a talent has proven to be just extraordinary. She's really singular. She is emerged as and this might be somewhat of a demotion for her. I think it doesn't even speak to her talents, but she's emerged as a new scream queen, but in the best ways possible, because the things that she can do with her facial features and her voice and her emotions are just otherworldly. And we saw that really on Showcase and Pearl. That was
Mhm.
truly a tour de force performance in a horror film from an actress, unlike anything that we've ever seen. And she had to do so much in that movie. It really rested all on her shoulders. Such a singular character piece. And I love that for it. And I was expecting that out of this movie. I was expecting to see some new things out of Mia Goth, even though this is the same character from X. It's a few years later. She is sort of taking on a new identity. I wanted to see if we can do something drastically different than what we've already seen. And unfortunately, we
Mhm.
don't do that. But even more egregiously, we showcase how talented she is, like in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the movie. There is an extraordinary scene featuring Mia Goth at the very beginning of this film. And I'm like, we're here. This is exactly
Yep.
what we want out of this trilogy. But then we don't ever see any hints of that for the rest of the film. And it's a really, really strange and odd choice to me. I just don't
Mhm.
understand that. And that just kind of left me befuddled after seeing the movie, that she felt wasted in a trilogy that is really about her. It's about her playing multiple characters, spanning multiple generations, dealing with the morality war, wanting to be a movie star coming from porn, but then also dealing with Puritans and religion. A lot of interesting stuff to play with that we just don't even hammer home in this movie because it's just bogged down by, I think, a lot of distractions. On the positive side, the faithful recreation of 1985, beautiful, terrific stuff. I
Mhm.
mean, Ty West and what he does here, similar to the previous two movies in X and Pearl, to recreate a generation, to recreate an era. He has a particular distinct knack for that a lot of directors just don't possess. And I just love everything they did here because it felt so genuine and authentic. I actually think that this movie would be a great double feature with Body Double, Brian De Palma's 1984 movie, because that's also
Mhm.
set in LA in 84. It's kind of dealing with sex industry, sex workers, and things of that nature. Murders, obviously, at the centerpiece of it. That would
Right.
be a great double feature. And so I definitely would prop it up for that stuff. Everything that they did there was magnificent, especially in an era where we're getting so much nostalgia driven movies and television shows, especially for the 80s. Like we see that shit like all the time now. It's not even special anymore. But to do it and to make it feel special was great. But another thing that I think ultimately kind of weighs the movie down, it's not as egregious as I think the waste and the misuse of Mia Goth, but just from a story perspective, this movie does something interesting. It almost follows a similar formula as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where we're
Mhm.
taking a real situation and we're adding a twist to it that didn't particularly play out in real life, but they're obviously integrating it into the story and into the characters here. And that was just such a thin piece of the movie. They try to introduce the Night Stalker killer in LA, which was a real person, a real thing that happened, a lot of murders that occurred during that particular time period. They add that storyline in conjunction with what Maxine Minx is trying to do. She's trying to break into Hollywood and trying to become this big movie star. And we're doing this at the same time. And I thought that we were doing something really, really incredible, similar to what Tarantino did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Mhm.
where we're kind of hanging out with these people, but the entire time there's like this foreboding sense of dread that's building, because we kind of know at the end like some shit's going down. Like this doesn't end
Mhm.
well. And then by the time you get to the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it becomes like a fucking ridiculous third act romp. It's all
Mhm.
good, right? But we started to do that here, and then I just feel like it loses all momentum at a certain point. For example, they introduce the Bates Motel in the movie, one of the most
Mhm.
iconic locations in all of cinema history. I've been to the Bates Motel backlot at Universal Hollywood. There's something really sinister about that house, even in real life. Like the way that Alfred Hitchcock designed that, it's actually pretty crazy the effect it has on you. It's really unsettling. And they use it in the movie. And in the scene, I'm like, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be important. But then it goes nowhere. Same thing with the Night Stalker. He's introduced and it feels like we're building up something really big with this character. Doesn't go anywhere. It's pretty
Yep.
useless by the end of it. They do add in a swerve, but it's not all that interesting. I mean, they try to make it personal to Maxine, but I think just by that point, it was a pretty significant letdown. And I was watching the movie, and I liked some of the scenes that they were stitching together. Some of the moments were okay. Obviously, the nostalgia was great, but as a full, rich experience, it just missed the mark. It just didn't hit those
Mhm.
levels that his previous two feature films did, which is it's unfortunate. It's not a terrible movie by any stretch. Like you can do a lot worse here, but it's definitely a step down. Which it's hard. It's hard to round out a trilogy. I don't know. Off the top, can you think of any other trilogies that may maybe like up in the upper echelon of horror movies. I don't even know like too many trilogies that just stop after the third movie. Typically, they're like, let's just keep making them. Let's make 4, 5,
Maybe
6, 7 of them.
making
They just keep
10 of
making
them
them.
things.
But I don't know if there's like maybe a set of 3 movies. Like even if they do make more, if they made a 4th or a 5th edition, I don't know if there's like really a set of 3 movies in horror that really stand out. I would say maybe for me personally, maybe the best example might be the first 3 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Maybe. Like,
Yeah.
they made more of them, obviously, but the
Yeah.
first 3 are really, really good. I think those first 3 like are great together as companion pieces, and then it gets really convoluted. But Halloween, we get Season of the Witch by the third one. That just fucks everything up.
Whatever that is.
Personally, Friday the 13th, I can't really
Evil
watch
Dead?
I
Army
can't
of
really.
Darkness?
That's probably the best example, even though Evil Dead 2 was basically just Evil Dead 1 on
just
steroids.
Evil Dead 1.
Yeah.
That
But
third
that's
movie hard, bro.
Army of Darkness is incredible. That's a great example, though.
I know, yeah. But that third, Blade struggles with the third movie. Wreck 3 is off the hinges.
Yeah.
A lot of people are calling MaXXXine like the Scream 3 of the trilogy.
That's pretty accurate.
Which is funny.
It's pretty
accurate as shit, actually.
Yeah,
I was like, no, I can see that for sure. I mean, yeah, man, I don't.
It's tough.
Yeah,
it's
that
really
third
tough.
movie is real. Candyman don't do it.
Oh, definitely not.
Don't know,
no.
but
I mean, usually we see in a lot of examples, like usually they kind of they really go off the rails even in the second movie, and sometimes they come back around. We just actually, last fall we talked about The Exorcist. You got a classic first movie, second movie, an abomination, and then the third movie actually proves to be something really, really interesting, even though it comes out like, I don't know, 17 or 18 years after the first initial movie. But it's really hard. It's really hard in horror, I think, to deliver 3 quality, solid movies.
The House of 1,000 Corpses, Double Rejects, 3 from Hell is not terrible.
Okay,
they're not three of the best movies I've seen. But like, what you're getting for everyone. Like they're pretty like consistent kind of across that. But I mean, it's hard, man.
Yeah, you go down the list: difficult. Alien, Predators, all of those. Like they have problems. What about Saw?
Night of the Living Dead.
What about
Dawn
Saw?
of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Man, the third one, bro. I don't know about Saw. Like the first one, iconic. Second one, a lot of us have seen. I really like the second one.
Second one's
the
good.
Third one. I don't know.
Third one gets a little weird. Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, horror. It's one of those hard things to crack. Maybe in the next few years here, with some of these new horror franchises that we're starting, we can see a really solid trilogy. But until then, we'll be waiting. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the new Ty West film, MaXXXine. If you've checked this out, hit us up and let us know what you think.